Iran marks the first anniversary of the martyrdom of late President Ebrahim Raeisi, who lost his life in a helicopter crash. The incident brought sorrow and grief not only to the Iranian nation, but to many others throughout the world. What President Raeisi left behind was a legacy that could be exemplary for this generation and generations to come. And joining us now for an extended conversation on the martyrdom of late Iranian President Ebrahim Raeisi. Joining us is Nahid Pourissa from our Press TV newsroom, joining us out of our Tehran studios, and also Olsi Jazishi, historian and social activist, joining us from Kuala Lumpur. Hello to the both of you. I guess, Nahid, we'll start with you. Your initial thoughts on the late Iranian president's life and his legacy. We knew that he had a particular approach to economic, especially sanctions relief for the country, looking off to the east. He said that sanctions shouldn't be looked at, and one shouldn't be intimidated by sanctions, that they could in fact be an opportunity. What did he mean by that?
Yeah, so I think it was very significant, the very short period of time that Ebrahim Raeisi was the president of Iran, only for 3 years. And he made it very clear, and he was very successful, him and also his government and administration, to bring concrete changes. He came to power after, I would say, a decade of very difficult situation, especially economically in Iran, when we even experienced minus economic growth and later just maybe 1 or 2%. It was the time that we even were excluded from COVID vaccine, and it was a very difficult time for Iranian people. And everyone was telling us, because of the sanctions, we are actually entitled to nothing. I think Ebrahim Raeisi was very successful to, first of all, make it very clear that the health of Iranian people and the well-being of them are the first priority for us. And with the negotiation they had with China, especially, it was very significant that there was a mass import of vaccination for Iranian, and everyone could see a very fast change in the everyday life of Iranian was actually possible. And later with the trade, especially with the crude oil, Iran was very successful to increase the trade from 2 million to 60% increase, and it got to 3.6 million barrels. So there were so many examples of Raisi's administration that saying that we know sanctions are very cruel and they are there to make the lives of Iranians really hard, but we also are capable and we have to be more creative to make changes through alternative ways. There are many possibilities for us. There are a lot of potentials for us when we just try to turn our focus barely on JCPOA and the deal with and negotiation with US and Western countries, and going to our neighbors, our friends, our allies, and to think of alternative ways how we can make progress. And that was very clear when the deal and the strategic partnerships with China, when Ebrahim Raeisi had a state visit to China, for example. As I said, there are a lot of examples from BRICS to Shanghai. We can discuss all of them. But what is very simple, and it was at the core of, I think, his approach towards economic and also international approach that Iran should have, was that the core is, for us, is the look east policy. We are here to think about other ways for Iran to actually go through and see how, not only for Iran, but also for the regional approach, how we can see more development in a better and sovereign way.
Mm-hmm. Very well put, Nahid. Thank you for that. Your initial thoughts there. Olsi Yazigi also joining us now from Kuala Lumpur. Olsi, pleasure to have you on the program. If you could please, your initial thoughts on the life and legacy of the late Iranian president now a year after his passing.
President Ebrahim Raeisi, in my opinion, was one of the most successful presidents in the modern history of Iran. Now, if we start from his early life, he was an early revolutionary, a person who took part in the Islamic Revolution with Imam Khomeini. So he was one of his students and one of the revolutionaries of the very first hours of the revolution. Then he was one of those revolutionaries who had to deal with the anti-revolutionary reactionaries against the Islamic Republic, like the Mujahideen al-Halq and other terrorist organizations, which they wanted to topple the Islamic Republic. And then during his presidency, I think, of 2021 and 24, Iran achieved some of the greatest achievements since its Islamic revolution. When President Raisi came in power in 2021, the global situation of Iran was not that good, but he had, in a way, a good luck coming for him, because while on one hand, the Americans and the Zionist lobby, they went against President Raisi. The Munafiqins who are hosted in Albania, they even labeled him the butcher of Tehran, but he was not. He was a great leader, a great visionary. And good luck for Iran was the year 2022, when the conflict in Ukraine started. And in this time, Iran became a major regional power by coming to the aid of Russia to face the international sanctions that were put on Russia. So in this time, we will have Iran excelling in its diplomacy. President Raisi stood against the so-called Abraham Accords, which was a defeat of the Arab world to Zionism. He called Israel a false regime. And during this time, Iran will emerge as one of the most important global powers, not only in the Middle East. And in September, 7 October 2023, when Hamas will start its attack against Israel, Iran and its axis of resistance, I have here in mind militias from Iraq to Syria, the Houthis in Yemen, and in particular Hezbollah. They gave the greatest resistance that the Israeli state has ever faced. So during the time of President Raisi, Iran will emerge as a major economic power, which will come to the aid of Russia, of course, and Russia is going to appreciate it a lot. And in particular, President Raisi, he was very much appreciated by President Putin and the Russians. Second, the world is going to see the projection of power that the Islamic Republic is going to do. I mean, from Ukraine with the so-called Shahid drones to Tel Aviv, we will have different fighting parties from Donbass to Gaza that in a way or another are going to show the projection of the Iranian power. So President Raisi, he was a great global leader, like he was even a local leader in the complex of Iran. So he was a revolutionary of the first hours, but at the same time, he managed to build fantastic international relations for Iran. We shouldn't forget that during the time of President Raisi, Iran is going to join BRICS. Iran is going to establish fantastic relations with the third world countries, with the BRICS countries, with China, with Russia, with Brazil, and even India in a way. So I would describe the reign of President Raisi as one of the most successful in the modern history of Iran.
Very nice, Olsi. Thank you for opening thoughts there. Nahid, I want to come back to you, Nahid. We know that the late Iranian president, Said Raisi, was very into expanding and on regional, especially neighbor nations that surround Iran and exist here in West Asia, and take existing friends and build on relationships with those. This neighborliness that he used to refer to it as, of course, it's required in any region for any country to build stronger ties with its neighbors for regional stability and influence and security. But there's also an added dimension to that. It was also to an economic objective, and also due to the waning U.S. influence in the region and all the negative consequences of the U.S.'s existence and presence in the region, the late Iranian president found it imperative to get local regions to assume control of the security of the region and drive once and for all U.S. off the soil of West Asia, Nahid.
Well, one very significant example came to my mind by this question, which is the peace deal that we had with Saudi Arabia. That was during the presidency of Ebrahim Raeisi, and it was very important. We are talking about regional development, and development is not possible if we don't initiate peace with our neighbors. And Saudi Arabia is a very important neighbor of Iran, and that was during Raisi's presidency when we achieved this deal. And it's very essential because later, even after True Promise 1, when was again, that was the first time that Iran successfully launched attack, drone and missile attack from the soil of Iran to occupied Palestine. And it was again during his presidency that happened. But after this operation, we heard a lot from the different countries and especially Western media that Israel is going to ask a neighboring country to use their land to attack Iran, and that didn't happen. And I think it is very important because the foundation of peace was already paved, even though the, of course, Israeli regime or Americans do not like to see that, but that happened. Yes, China was a very important factor in this peace deal, but at the end of the day, it was Iran to try to make this peaceful relation possible. And as I said, there are so many elements in the very short period of his presidency. As you mentioned, it's economic, it's political. We shouldn't forget the very essential, critical impact that Amir Abdullahian had during his foreign ministry. As we in Iran, we call him the voice and the minister of children in Gaza. He was the voice for the oppressed people in Palestine, and he tried diplomacy to be very impactful and try to convince the neighboring countries, Arab states, to actually be more responsible, I have to say, and take more accountability for what is happening in Gaza. To be honest, I have to say that was a very tragic loss for us. President Raisi was critical. We could see many significant changes, concrete, solid changes during his presidency, and his martyrdom was a big shock for the entire country. But also we have to remember that last year was full of losses that we never ever going to forget, and the martyrdom of Raisi was the first one. But what is very important is the legacy, that we still continue what was started from his time, which is committing to this very important, essential fact that also Iran's leader has been articulating so many times, that we are not here to sit and accept the bullies of imperialism, Western countries, as Raisi and said it very clearly, that I'm not here to negotiate with the US directly, and that's it. It was very clear, and in the speech today, Iran's leader was also mentioning that, because it was important. It is important to hear the stance of Iran from the president in a very short and sharp way, that there is no other interpretation from his speech. There is no possibility to think, okay, Iran also wants to do that. No, there is nothing else rather than a very sharp stance that he took. But at the same time, it's not only that. We are not here to just say we don't negotiate, or if we negotiate, this is the only way for us to save our people's lives. Raisi was very creative and proactively trying to find other ways, and he was successful. He was very successful economically, trying to make the neighbors and the allies to trust Iran again, and he was successful to bring back especially the export of Iran to the time before the sanction. It's very interesting. There is a quote that it's only one of the occasions that Iran was imposed by the US 600 sanctions, and still Raisi was successful to increase the amount of trade by 60%. So we didn't see that US is lifting the sanctions, but what we saw was a successful, I would say, exit strategy to, okay, that's going to be staying here, which is sanctions and the entire sanctions machine to oppress Iran. But we are not sitting here and just limiting our mindset only about the how and when and when the US imperialism is going to decide to lift the sanctions. He was very committed to actually lift people's lives during his presidency, and he was successful in that.
Thank you, Naheed. And Olsi, we know that pre-October 2023, President Raisi was all over the world, in Africa, in South America, in the East, and in the region of West Asia, to improve the economic situation of Iran, to offset, as Naheed was alluding to, the crippling sanctions imposed against the country. But post-October of 2023, it seems him and Foreign Minister Hossein Amir-Abdollahian, all their efforts went towards securing a ceasefire to the genocide in Gaza, fighting for Palestinians, their resistance, and also Lebanese resistance. They called him the president of resistance, the martyr of martyrs. What does one have to do to assume such a label?
Yeah, I mean, during the reign of President Raisi, I mean, he achieved on many fronts, like you mentioned. Number one, when it came to economy, I mean, he transformed the economy of Iran from a bankrupt country to a very successful one. And this was thanks to his wise and Mr. Abdullahian, of course, wise strategy on approaching the global West, approaching the BRIC countries, and expanding the influence of Iran. But I think that one of the most important achievements, at least from a perspective of a foreigner like me, a Sunni, is that the start of the war in Gaza and the start of genocide of Israel will see suddenly Iran for it really is. Because until 7 October 2023, the Zionist propaganda was always trying to portray Iranians as not being sincere towards Palestine, as having evil intentions towards the Sunni world and what you have. But when the war started, then we saw this man who in my opinion, he's a hero, he's a shaheed, he's a martyr of Islam, who put all his state administration in service of the Palestinians. And look, Iran suffered because of this war, because Iran lost its generals, lost its officials. We had Ismail Haniyeh being killed in Tehran by Israel, but Iran stood tall. And unlike other Muslim countries who were silent and obeyed to the dictate of Zionism, Iran said no. They said, we will stay with the Palestinians. And this is a moment, I think, since the 1979 Islamic Revolution, that suddenly the global community, and in particular the Sunni world, understood that, look, these Iranians are not these evil people whom the Wahhabi and Takfiri propaganda tries to portray, but these people are really sincere about Palestine. I mean, during President Raisi and the following operation through Promise 1 and 2, I mean, Iran showed to the world that it is serious about liberating Palestine, and it is not simply a propaganda. And President Raisi, he became the hero of the international community. I mean, because I follow a lot the Mujahideen and Halq, and I know their propaganda and their hybrid warfare that they and Mossad wage against Iran from Southeast Asia to Canada, and how they try to demonize the government of Iran. But during the presidency of President Raisi, by standing on the side of the Palestinians, every person in this planet understood and said, wait a minute, these Iranians are really standing up for justice. And apart from the local politics that you have in Iran, Iran scored so high with what President Raisi did. I mean, his administration will be remembered even in the coming generations, that once upon a time there was a great Iranian leader by name Ebrahim Raeisi who stood for justice, who sent his country into war with the global superpowers to stop genocide. And while we, the Sunni world, we did nothing. And we have to remember what President Raisi did when he called the meeting of the OIC. And we should not forget his speech there. He told the Sunni leaders, he told them, look, I know you are cowards. You are not going to go to war with Israel. But minimum, do not trade with them. Let us fight with them. And all humanity, the global left movement, from Canada to Norway, from Gaza to West Bank, from Kuala Lumpur to Indonesia, everybody looks today with respect on Iran. And this came thanks to President Raisi.
Thank you, Olsi and Nahid, both of you joining us in this extended conversation. Nahid Puris from our Press TV news team here in Tehran, and also Olsi Jazeshi, their historian and social activist, joining us from Kuala Lumpur. And viewers, that brings us to the end of this extended coverage as Iran marks the first martyrdom anniversary of late President Ebrahim Raeisi, along with his foreign minister Hossein Amir Abdullahian, who tragically passed away in a helicopter crash today, last year. And this brings us to end your extended coverage. And that's a wrap, everyone, here on Press TV. Bye-bye, and stay safe for now.